We are so delighted to welcome the inspirational Cher Casey to the podcast. As a Californian native who is now based in York, here in England, Cher has the benefit of having experience being a professional organiser at first hand in both the US and the UK. Her holistic approach goes beyond tidying up. She focuses on enhancing physical, emotional, and mental well-being by creating spaces that promote peace and balance. In today's podcast, we're going to chat to Cher about why she believes decluttering is the ultimate in self-care.
You're listening to the Declutter Hub podcast, bringing you tried and tested, no-nonsense tips and advice from the leading experts in decluttering and organising your home. Now here's your host, Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome, listeners. I'm Leslie. We're delighted you're here to join us as part of your decluttering journey. So whether you're brand new today or have been listening in for ages, we want to say thank you so much for being here. It means so much to Ingrid and I that you turn up every week to listen to and support us while we talk all things decluttering and organising. We'd love to help more people with their quest for a clutter-free home, and our podcast is a fantastic way for people to be inspired to take action. We have a favour to ask. If you like what you hear, be sure to hit the follow, subscribe, or like button on your podcast player. Share us with your friends or share your thoughts on the podcast by leaving a review. Well, hello, Cher. How are you? Welcome to the Declutter Hub podcast.
I'm very well. Pleasure to be here.
Well, I said just before we came on, we're both, if you're on YouTube, you'll see us. Well, you'll also see the weird sun that's doing weird things on my window, but we're both in pink today. So we're doing it for the pink, aren't we, Cher? Yeah. So I'm so excited to invite you because you've been in our world for quite a while and you've got so many fab things to share. But let's go right back to the beginning. You are from the US, from California, but you now live here in the UK. And you have experience professional organising, decluttering, organising, whatever, both in the US and the UK. And I want to explore that a little bit. So tell me about what brought you to the UK and why you kind of strangely left California.
I get this question a lot. No, I have an academic background, so I came to the UK to pursue my graduate studies in the history of art, medieval art specifically. So I was completely charmed by York and all of its historic treasures here. And so I left to pursue my graduate studies, start with my master's, and then continued on with my PhD here in York.
So you are married, Cher. Is that to an American or a Brit?
Actually Irish.
Oh, right, okay.
He's been included.
Did you just add a third country into the mix just to make it even more complicated?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay, cool. And did you meet in California? Did you meet here in York? How did that all work?
We met in York, so it was at the end of my graduate studies, and we met in the city centre in a bar. And that was kind of one of the main reasons I wanted to stay, in addition to stumbling upon a really interesting academic topic that I wanted to pursue into PhD level. So it's a combination.
Fantastic. Yeah. So before we talk about your life here, sort of post-academia, let's call it that, let's talk about what you did in California. So you had experienced decluttering and organising, and am I right in thinking you had been a professional organiser over in California?
Yes, it was. So it was between 2010 and 2012, so right before I came to the UK. And it wasn't, I did use the term professional organizer, but I didn't have an official business. It was kind of alongside childcare. I kind of was juggling lots of different jobs, partially working and teaching at the university, and then also taking care of children. And it kind of snowballed from there. Kind of started with working with the families that helping the families that I worked with. Tidy kind of their pantries or streamline the toys and things like that. And then they would refer me on to their friends who may or may not have had children. And it kind of started from there. So
fantastic. So fast forward, you come to York, you follow your dreams and your passion, and you write a thesis about what? Tell us.
It's the short version is I worked with medieval relics, so skulls from Cologne, Germany. So we're looking at like 11 to 1300 and investigating their decoration and their textiles and their displays in Cologne. And then they were kind of sent out in great numbers across Europe. So I got to do some really cool case studies in Belgium and Poland, as well as areas in Germany.
Even more countries, right? Even more countries thrown into the mix share.
Yeah, it's a bit, yeah, it was basically medieval clutter, which is hilarious. There were
All
of these
right.
skulls.
Fantastic. So, um, but it came at a price, right? So your thesis, your studies, all of that that you did back in what year are we talking now that you did this?
I finished 2.5 years ago.
Two and a
So
half years ago.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it
so it
came
was
at a price, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, people that have ever gone through to PhD level, people have witnessed and been a part of someone's life. It's a really all-consuming process, and everything for me kind of came to a head. The last like year and a half was my ride-up year. You have to kind of like shuffle in getting married, taking honeymoon. We also had a baby in the process, so I had a mat leave in there as well. So I came back from my mat leave after a year and yeah, just started trying to finish everything up and tie loose ends together, going back over research that had happened from several years ago, case studies and things like that. So kind of pulling all of the essential pieces together and at the same time trying to be a really present mom and battling massive sleep deprivation and just exhaustion on all ends. So it was, I wouldn't change it, but it was a really, really exhausting period of my life. Everyone says, being a mom is the toughest job in the world. And if you talk to academics, they say, finishing your thesis and completing that is the toughest thing. But somehow in my life, it overlapped. So
Yeah,
it
fair enough.
resulted in a very, very exhausted human.
And so, you do you think you got to a stage where you sort of suggesting it's a lot? Did you actually get to a kind of burnout stage?
Yeah. Because of the deadlines, you're not really permitted to have burnout. I mean, people do, but I had used up all of my kind of leave time with, mat leave and then getting married and all those types of things. So I didn't have any way to kind of push my deadlines forward. So it was kind of one after the other. And in the home, it kind of looked like my husband took over tons of stuff that I would normally be doing. A lot of pressure was kind of put on him for like childcare and house stuff and things. And as a result, I wasn't able to kind of action the things that I would normally be on top of in the house, which it never got to kind of a critical stage, but it didn't feel good for me. So yeah, it was it was tough. Yeah.
So talk us through what you did in your first sort of foray into trying to resolve those issues that you had in terms of the exhaustion and the complete overwhelm by the sounds of things. What did you do?
It happened at a really good time. I submitted in October and I didn't take any kind of, I didn't look at anything academic. I really took a proper break until the beginning of the year. And at that stage, it was a great time for New Year's resolutions. I'm a big, advocate of setting goals and reflecting on your year. And I just kind of got this vision that I want my life to be more organized, my home, my well-being, everything just needed a little bit of TLC. So I just typed something in, Google organized, my life type thing, and the Declutter Hub popped up. So it's kind of started with that, but over the process of the year, it kind of snowballed into not just the physical things, but myself as well. And for me, this is kind of looking at kind of self-care, but it it really took the angle of, right, I need to get control of my space. So for me to feel better, I don't know if that makes sense, but like having kind of control or kind of reclaiming spaces was my way of kind of crawling back out of this like extreme exhaustion and overwhelm. And I'm quite not a busy person, but I like to be feeling like I'm productive a lot of the time. So it was a perfect combination of being productive, but also in a really, really loving way to myself that was impacting my space and also making me feel really good. So, and I don't think that there are many things in life that can do that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think one of the reasons why we wanted to chat to you today, Cher, was because I think it's fair to say in the Declutter Hub, we talk a lot about overwhelm. We talk a lot about bigger volumes. We talk a lot about the emotional kind of association connection with clutter. And, sometimes we don't talk as much about people who kind of feel overwhelmed by the amounts that they've got, but perhaps other people would look at those amounts and those volumes and go, that's not really a problem. Your house looks fine. And so it's all about this idea of different levels of tolerance. And so, say for example, Ingrid and I have spoken about it about ourselves, so we can have small amounts of clutter and it still feels overwhelming. And so I want to explore that a little bit more with you, because I have a sneaky suspicion, because of your sort of background, when you sort of started to kind of work a little bit in organizing in the States before you came over here, that you didn't have a completely overwhelmed, full to the brim chock-a-block with clutter, that actually your volumes compared to a lot of people who are in this world were probably a little bit on the low side, but nevertheless, you still felt that complete overwhelm. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the amounts of clutter and the way it impacts people is completely personal, and it's all relative to your space, but it depends 100% on how you interact in your space. If you're not happy in it, regardless of how full or empty it is, if it's impacting you, then the clutter is bothering you, and it's impacting your life in negative ways. So I never had enormous amounts of clutter, but for me, like when I was finishing up my thesis, I just kind of like look around the house and be like, oh, I'll get to that when I'm finished. I'll get to that when I'm finished. Oh, that's really big, and from the outside, it wouldn't have looked like a lot of stuff, but it was really bothering me and triggering me. And I was working at home and kind of like seeing these things that were triggering me on a daily basis and not being able to action them. And that buildup of not having the time to be able to do it was really, really, really a struggle for me.
And it's really about that lack of control by the sounds of things, having to sort of hand off things to your husband that you ordinarily would have wanted to do yourself and things like that. There's big transitions in there. There's marriage, there's the end of your academic journey, perhaps maybe not the end, but kind of the end of that part of it. And of course, having a child as well. Those are huge transitions which bring with them naturally a lot of stuff and changes in the house. And so what you did before doesn't necessarily lend itself to going forward. So how did you do that? How did you go about that decluttering process? Tell us about like what it looked like before and what it kind of looks like now.
Yeah, so we moved house and we brought a lot of the stuff that we weren't using with us because I didn't have the capacity to kind of declutter before we arrived here, and so there was kind of a buildup of things. A lot of it had to do with my daughter, things that she had kind of outgrown, clothes, toys, and just baby kit comes with having a child. So that had kind of accumulated. When I first started the program, it was a structured program. I think the first day was the kitchen, second day was bathroom, third day was like the wardrobe. So it was it was structured, but with each one of them, I think because I already had that kind of past history of decluttering for other people, it is something that I have kept in my life. But when I went at it, it was like, right, we're going to do the mugs, but I just did the whole kitchen. I was really, really lucky though, because I had the kind of the privilege of having time. So all of a sudden I didn't have a thesis I was writing. My girl was in childcare 3 days a week. And I had these days where it was like, yes, like, let's do this. So I just dove in head first, and things really radically started changing. And I'm really, really ruthless. It's like this, I'm not using this, go. There is obviously some sentimental stuff that I have, and that's still important. But I mean, there's also a caveat that I came here, someone who's not from the UK, so I still have some stuff back home with my parents at my dad's house. So that I have not touched those things, and I'm lucky that I don't have that. And also, my husband has moved here to the UK, so his parents have a lot of his stuff from when he was a child. So right. I haven't touched those things. So this is like my adult life of 12 years living here, which has still amazingly accumulated a ton of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So the stuff that's back home is probably mostly sentimental stuff, I would imagine. Do you know what I mean? And that can come over when it comes over. And so I think just to clarify, I think what Cher's talking about is that she joined us in the Reset Your Home Challenge. Was that a couple of years ago, Cher?
It would have been 2023, January 2023. Yeah, so
January.
last January.
Yeah, and I think you're right, really, Cher. So for a lot of people, and obviously we've got an upcoming Reset Your Home Challenge in January, so do sign up if you've not done already, because what that allows you to do, it gives you that structure, and by working alongside other people and just have people coaching you through things and things like that, it really does give you that kickstart that you need in your decluttering journey. So check out the Reset Your Home Challenge, which is where Cher got started. So you just went for it. Basically, you had time on your hands, which is absolutely fantastic. You felt you were ruthless. You felt you had this background of understanding things a little bit in terms of organization and storage from your time in the States. I'm really interested in talking to you. Your business, Cher, is called the Mindful Organiser. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the mindfulness aspect. Why do you think that decluttering and mindfulness are intrinsically linked?
Yeah, I really love this question because it took me time to come up with the name of my business, and I was toying around with a lot of different words and combinations. And when I came across the Mindful Organizer, I loved it because, yeah, for me, decluttering, and I know that this is a huge part of the Declutter Hub, but the decluttering is really not so much about the stuff and the things that accumulate. It's not about the physical items. It's about the emotions and habits, life circumstances, what's going on in your house. And the clutter is a manifestation of those things. And usually it's a couple of those things overlapping. And this is what I've seen a lot in my work. So taking a mindful approach is not just about, right, I want this desk clear. Let's put everything in the bin. It's really taking the time to think about the items, and with the objective of, analyzing, like, does this fit in my life? Does it serve a purpose? Why am I holding on to it? So looking at things not just from the surface level of I want space, not that can be a really effective tool, but how do I want to use this space? What do these objects mean to me? And in a lot of ways, it's kind of curating your space to reflect you and your lifestyle now. And I see a lot of this with my clients where they have these thoughts and hopes and dreams about what they will be doing. And a lot of the stuff in their homes reflect that. And it's taking that pause, that moment to just be like, okay, I have this item. I'll use the example of a bread maker because that was something that I had held on to for so long because the thought of making homemade bread was so appealing. And I did it for a long time, but then I had a baby and it just wasn't something that was high on my list. But it took a while. I didn't let go in my first pass. I knew that it was something I didn't use, but I wanted time to kind of think about it. And once I let it go, it actually felt great knowing that it was going to be used again. And I have not regretted it at all. So, yeah, the mindfulness is really about taking the time and digging deeper into the reasons about why you have these things and how they serve you or don't serve you.
What I find really interesting, Sharon, because everything is related somehow to what you're doing. And I think the fact that you come from an academic background, and there's a couple of words that you've used there. So you've talked about evaluation, you've talked about curation. And I wonder whether you feel that your kind of academic life, particularly with it being about artifacts. I'm sorry, I'm not very good with those kind of stuff. I'm just going to call them artifacts. Do you think that's been relevant to the way that you think about decluttering and organizing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wrestled with this, and we may or may not touch on this, but pivoting from academia into professional organizing. Because of it, I've just kind of thought of the different ways that kind of academic stuff overlaps with decluttering and organizing. And a lot of it has to do with the importance of items. And the things that I studied previously were these really sacred, like the most important things, priceless objects that was celebrated in a society and put in amazing spaces that were going to be visible. And that plays 100% into creating spaces and curating spaces because, yeah, when you look at your space mindfully and you pick out these pieces and things that are important to you and put them in a pride of place where you can appreciate them, it is really, each room becomes this kind of, not an exhibition, but a curated, a mindfully thought out and designed space that, yeah, that's meant to make you feel a certain way.
I love that so much. Isn't it interesting how it's good to make that connection, because I think a lot of people wouldn't get that connection from studying something that seems so separate, so different to what you're trying to do with a day-to-day, modern home, and something that's, medieval. And so really, really interesting that you brought those two together and thought it's just the same. It's the same. Do you know what I mean? But it's different but the same. So interesting. And of course, we are absolutely going to talk more about you pivoting your academic studies into your business after the break. So let's go for a short break and we'll be back in a moment. So welcome back, and thank you so much for everything that you've shared with us so far, Cher. I'd really like to talk a little bit more about this the similarities, the overlap then between your academic studies and your sort of foray into decluttering, whether that be on a personal level within your home that then obviously moved into a business, which we're going to talk about in a moment. So where do you think the sort of similarities and overlap are?
Yeah, I think for me personally, once I finished my program, I kind of had this strange void in my life, and I kind of felt like I wanted to be active, but I could not kind of face anything academic and returning to my thesis. So for me, actually, decluttering my home kind of filled that space in my life where I could dedicate a lot of time and energy. And when I came across the Declutter Hub, I really just kind of dove into all of the different, the self-study elements of it, going through the systematic, each room by room and kind of projects by projects. So that's kind of how I got started. And I really kind of stuck with that. I think I've taken kind of a PhD approach to learning about decluttering and looking at different styles and different ways and methods of approaching decluttering and organizing.
And I think the one thing that's true to say about the Declutter Hub is that it's very in depth, I would say. So it's very detailed, and we make no apologies about that. So yes, our videos can be quite long, but we want to make sure that everything that Ingrid and I know about something is in there, so that people can then pick what resonates with them. I think it's really important because there are only going to be certain elements that resonate with certain people. So we kind of like to cover most eventualities so that people go, oh, I get it now, I get it now. Because I think superficial learning is not going to do it. And, something, if you've been struggling in your home for years, if not decades, it's not a quick fix. It's something that you do need to look at as if it were an academic piece and kind of learn and go back to basics like you would if you were trying to do an A-level or a GCSE. You've had the basics, but you need to revise. All of those kind of things come into play. So it's something that, we don't apologize for, that we go into a lot of detail, and I think that's something that you probably enjoyed. And I would say, Cher, that you probably enjoyed the self-study elements of things in the roadmap. We have a roadmap which takes you all the way through your home. Is that fair to say that you probably poured over the detail in the roadmap?
Yeah, I loved it. And I mean, to be fair, in the very beginning, you say that this is really detailed, but we really advocate that you do everything kind of the beginning parts, the kind of the theory side behind, decluttering. And I was just kind of wanted to jump in, but I stopped and I, did it in the way that you guys suggested. And I learned so much, and not everything applied to me, but it's something that I've learned about and taken on board. And it has been so valuable as a professional organizer, because even if it's something that I didn't encounter in my own home, I've definitely now seen it in the professional organizing world and being able to help clients and talk about things from, perspective that they will understand, and validating it. Yes, this is normal to have this many of these things, and this might be why.
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting about Cher's journey is that so you kind of dabbled in organizing in the States. You then went down a completely different path with your academic studies, with starting a family, with getting married, with migrating over here. And so you went down a completely different path. Then you felt overwhelmed. You had gone through those transitions. So organizing your home looked different to what it had looked like previously. You sought out help, followed a structured journey, learned a lot, loved it so much that you were then like, right, I'm going to start a business, didn't you? And so tell us about why you decided to actually go completely pivot from where you were in your academic studies and decide to start a professional organizing business.
Yeah, well, at the stage when I finished and I defended and, graduated and all of that, it had been almost about, including my master's, had been about 10 years I've been working on this one topic. And there's still lots to do on the topic, and it's completely relevant and really exciting. But I am one that really listens to kind of my internal, guidance system. And every time I'd go back to think about something that I'd worked on, or think about applying or research, a postdoc position, or look into publishing my thesis, there was just this like physical resistance to doing it. And I didn't push myself. And I think the idea of becoming a professional organizer was just really suggested by a friend. She said, well, why don't you just start your own business. You love doing this. I think also because throughout my journey, I was just experiencing the highs of decluttering and just loving my new space and, letting go of stuff, reclaiming my space, reclaiming my own kind of sanity, feeling more grounded and all of that. And my friends and everyone around me was kind of on that journey with me. So when a friend suggested it, I was kind of like, God, yeah, well, let me think about this. And it was really like a couple of days of just thinking about it. It was like, yes, let's do this. Why not?
And I think so many people get to that stage where it's like, I would love to do this as a business. Do you know what I mean? People think, how nice would that be? And you've listened to Ingrid and I for 320 odd podcasts, wax lyrical about how fab it is, because we do see it's life changing. It's a really positive place to work in. And, it's hard sometimes and it's not easy for everybody. But when you can make those changes, it's so life changing. So it's just fabulous. Mm-hmm. So the nice thing was, I guess, Cher, so you were in our world at that point. You were in our memberships. You were in our normal membership, so you were learning how to declutter your home for yourself. And then you found out then that we had a program for professional organisers, right? And so that's when you jumped from one to the other, right?
Yeah. So I had kind of started the process of picking a name, registering my domain, kind of all that back end beginning of a business, starting to design my website. And there's a lot of professional organizers in the States. So one of the podcasts I was listening to has a community of, to support professional organizers. And I thought, God, that would be amazing. But because of the time change, I wouldn't ever really be able to be present on their calls, which happen once or twice a week. So I was like, I don't actually think it'd be worth my while. But I knew that I wanted a community and support in starting the business, because being an entrepreneur, but also being a professional organizer, there's not a huge amount of, of us in the world relative to other professions. So I knew that I wanted and I needed that kind of support as an entrepreneur, but also as a professional organizer. And it's such a specific type of profession that there are things that we deal with that other people just couldn't even dream of that ever being an issue or cropping up in their own world. So I needed some people that, community of people that understood.
Yeah, definitely. And you found it in the same community that you were kind of already in, but just as a...
Yeah,
you didn't know, did you, Cher, did you not know that we had that?
No, I think because, there may have been emails before, and I just probably missed them, but it came as this amazing kind of gift into my inbox. I'm like, oh, there's something from the Declutter Hub. And I clicked on it and it was like, I don't remember the wording, but it was something like, have you ever dreamed of becoming a professional organizer? And you had percentages of like, this is what we do. We do this amount of like PR work and this amount of market, and this amount of actual client work and taxes and things like that. And I was like, okay, oh my God, this is like describing my life right now. So, and at the bottom it said, join our Prosper Circle. This is so amazing. I think instantly I sent you guys an email like, oh my God, this is just amazing timing. And, for me, starting out, there was a lot of upfront costs, but this was one that I was like, I need this. This is something like professional development that I need. And I liked that it was a year because it gave me that support, that network for, the first year and possibly onwards beyond that. But it was just so nice to know that I'd found that community and with the people that I already really respected and trusted. So it was perfect. Yeah.
I know, and we love having you there. And so just to give a bit of background to the Prosper program. So a lot of you might know that Ingrid and I spent quite a lot of time before we were in the Declutter Hub working for the Association of Professional Declutterers and Organisers. And our main role, Ingrid was the president of APDO for 4 years. I was the head of mentoring. We set up the first training program for professional organisers in the UK. We wrote it alongside one of our other colleagues, Juliet. And so we had been training professional organisers for many years, and we obviously absolutely love bringing other people on in our profession. And so we were like, we need to do something. Once the Declutter Hub membership was up and running, we were like, we'd love to do something, but we kept putting it off because obviously it's quite a lot of additional work. And so then we decided to do something quite low key. And so what we wanted was an area where it wasn't loads and loads and loads of organisers. It was a little bit of a smaller program so we could really devote the time to the people that are there. And Cher was one of our first members as well. And so it's very small. And so it's almost, sometimes it can be like a one-to-one call. Like there's never really any more than 3 or 4 people there, Cher, and you come, you ask your questions. And so we talk about client issues sometimes if people are having, not sure which way to go with a client, or quite often it's business related as well. So, obviously for a lot of professional organisers, it's very much about how do we, get clients? How do we retain clients? How do we promote ourselves? How do we market ourselves? How do we make sure we get the right clients? How do we, keep people coming back to us? All of that kind of stuff. And, the one thing that Ingrid and I have got, because we've been here a while, is experiencing running our own one-to-one businesses. And of course, we've learned an awful lot in terms of marketing specifically with the Declutter Hub. So the Prosper program has been going a couple of years now. It's still quite small. We had intended it being bigger, but we love it being small as well, and our members. And so we know we've now got a model that definitely works. When Cher joined us, it was minimum a year. Now it's not a year. You can come in for 3 months at a time to make it a little bit more affordable. So yeah, we love it, and we know that our Prosper members love it, right, Cher? Tell us a little bit more about how it's helped you.
Yeah, well, I think before I got on the first call, so they're monthly calls, and before the first call, I just kind of dove into all of the replays, the live Q&A replays. So these are the calls that happened before I joined, and like every single thing was relevant, and I knew I was on the path because I soaked it all in, and I knew that, I mean, some of the stuff was more advanced and things that you'd be dealing with, like if you're taking on an extra staff member, which I wasn't even close to doing, but it was all relevant and so specific to the industry that it was all things that I didn't need to put it into practice immediately, but it's there. And I love being able to kind of go back to those calls and look at things as and when things become relevant. But it's great because it is a small community, and we've got a WhatsApp group, which is really nice because even in between calls, we can stay in touch and we can just kind of ask each other things or celebrate wins, and it's a really, really lovely community, and we're all in kind of different areas in the UK, so there's kind of no overlap, but it's nice to hear what other people are doing. Yeah.
And I think it's so nice for us as well. We feel like we're almost like proud mums, really. So Cher, to be fair, Cher has completely hit the ground running with her business and was on fire from day one, and has been, I think that you've done everything in the right way, Cher. You've tried lots of things out. You're fantastic on social. So do make sure that you go and follow Cher on Instagram, because she's absolutely fab on there. You're doing shows, trade shows and things like that. So you really have gone into it sensibly. You are investing very much in the business side of things as well as the client side of things, which is unfortunately what we have to do when we're business owners. We really want to spend our whole time helping clients, but unfortunately there's a kind of whole host of things that have to be done on the background to make sure things keep ticking along. And I think you've done such a fantastic job. We're so proud of you, Cher, which is one of the reasons why we asked you to come and talk to us today. So it's just nice to see you going from, that's a 10, 15-year evolution, really, isn't it, from where you were back in California to coming over here through this big transition, to going through a transition of sorting out your own house, falling in love with it, understanding it more in terms of mindfulness, in terms of the fact that it's the ultimate self-care, and then deciding to go into it as a business to help other people. It's just this fantastic kind of, progression, really, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. It's nice to hear from an outside perspective, and yeah, obviously someone that I really respect. So thank you. Yeah.
So tell us about why you believe decluttering and organising has made you a better mum, friend, and partner. Your words.
Yeah, I really agree. I think that it has been, yeah, decluttering and organizing has kind of really given me the gift of time and clearer headspace. So I've been able to, really, really be more present with my daughter now that I feel like I'm in control of things in my home. I mean, we're never 100%, but for me, like knowing that I know where things are and I can kind of action things quickly. I'm at the stage, a really fortunate stage, where I'm kind of constantly decluttering. Things come in, things go out. It's, it's very, very, very quick. So, yeah, I think I've been able to be happy a lot more grounded, and that starts for me at home, having a place of like a sanctuary. And this is what I work with my clients a lot with, is to create that safe, calm space for people that is really your home, your grounding. And when you have that, you're able to be present with people in a different way. And you're also just able to have kind of a clearer mind and be able to, I don't know, spend more time doing things that you love instead of constantly being in your home and unhappy in your home and trying to make things better.
I think whilst decluttering can feel like a very daunting process in the beginning, it can be difficult. There's no doubt about that. It can be a difficult process to go through. You know, you had a couple of things on your side, really, Cher, where you had a little bit of time and you had that kind of knowledge sitting behind it, and you had the structure. But I think ultimately there's never a downside. There's never a downside to having less. Everything is positive. As long as you feel in control of the journey that you're on and you've got ultimate control, you know, the downside is if other people get involved and start to make you do things that you don't want to do. That's the downside. But other than that, it's all super positive, and it's just such a lovely thing to be able to come out the other side and feel calmer and feel as if you can, as you say, spend time doing the things that you want. So, Cher, I've loved our chat today. Thank you so much. Tell us a little bit more about where people can find the Mindful Organiser.
Yeah, I've got my website, which is themindfulorganiser.com. I'm also really active on primarily Instagram and also on Facebook. So that's the Mindful Organiser. And I'd say those are the best places to get in touch. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cher. And are you interested in exercising self-care in 2025 by focusing on a clutter-free, organised home? Don't forget, we've got a Reset Your Home challenge coming up at the beginning of January. So do go to declutterhub.com/RYH for all the details. Or if you're like, you know what, I've done all that, my house is decluttered, I'm ready to take it to the next level and become a professional organiser and enjoy things as much as Cher does, then you can come and join us in our Prosper programme. All the details are at declutterhub.com/prosper. We would love to see you there. So thank you so much, Cher, for being with us today. And we will see everybody next week.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for listening to the Declutter Hub podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us in your podcast player so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.